not only were the bones human, they were alphabetized.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
That's very kind of them.
I appreciate it. I need to open my textbook for that one again. I wouldn't have done a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
At least they help you remember your letters.
Wishbone is letter Y if you look at it close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's your wishbone?
In my heart.
Collar. My collar.
It is in your collar.
Mine's in my
Break
heart.
me open and make a wish, baby. I tell my wife when I'm past my prime.
How sad.
Well, on that note, welcome everybody back to the Uncannery. I'm Don,
I'm Doug.
And I'm Ron.
and we're glad that you're joining us again for this conversation about breaking Ron's chest open.
You signed up for this, listener.
Indeed.
You can go
Hey,
find an NPR podcast.
We're going to talk about some legends today, you guys.
I love legends.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I love the film Legend as well.
Legends are legitimately cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird that they exist at all, right? Is it a weird quirk of human psychology we even have legends?
It kind of is, especially when we look at how they change over time, I think. So,
And I mean, I think we're talking about legends in terms of a tale, but we also describe things as being legendary.
Right, because we
That are
think they're
outside of
tale
that.
worthy.
Yeah. Right.
I will
Right.
tell tale
Yeah.
of these wings, right? These wings are legendary.
Yeah.
And I often do.
Yeah.
and another quirk of human psychology, as long as you brought that up, right, is this that we all have a tendency to imagine ourselves as the star of our own movie. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the question I have for you guys today to start us off is, as legends in our own minds, and when future generations tell the legend of you, what do you want to be different about your story? What do you want them to get wrong?
That every man and woman in his company left satisfied.
Yeah, Ron, this is a rated PG podcast.
You can be
We have
satisfied in
family
many
listeners.
ways.
Whoa. I didn't take
Satisfied
it that
in this
way.
conversation, satisfied with the attention he paid them, satisfied in the money he gave them.
Yeah. Satisfied in the company of sharing a donut together.
Yeah,
You never know.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've always been satisfied, so thank you.
Oh, no.
I'll take a moment to
You're,
reflect.
you're what I call a good legend spreader. I'm trying to cut out bad legend spreaders from my life.
That's good.
Very selective in your legend spreader choosing.
Yeah. I think as a new dad, I've been working on some of my scary dad aura. I've tried to bring that in of just the more haunted part of me. That's like, you have to, I don't know. There's just a part of me that thinks, got to kind of start to conjure the presence that when my son is about to do something devious with his friends, he goes, my dad will get so mad. You've met my dad, right? I feel like that's something that's important to cultivate.
Yes.
So
Please keep cultivating.
Yeah, I'm going to see what I can do. So along those lines, I'm hoping that maybe it's the X-Men fan in me, but I want to be remembered as having like mutations. That's what I want to be wrong. Like he had 12
Like
fingers,
6 toes.
12 toes.
You know my dad. You know how scary he is. He's got 12 toes.
Exactly.
He turns into a toad.
He runs faster than anyone with that extra toe. Exactly. Yeah. So mutations would be great. Extra eyeballs, other ears to hear you with, my dear. Speaking of legends,
A good legend does have has a physical quality to them usually, right?
Yeah.
That sets them apart. Maybe it's just physical prowess, or they're
Right.
incredibly tall, or like Andre the Giant, though, like he was so big, he was a freakishly large man, or the Elephant Man, right? Or
Both of which are real human beings, right?
Yeah.
But then like Paul Bunyan would be the legend.
literally the tall too.
but they have like legendary status, I think. Do you think
They do.
so? Do you think a real person can't become a legend?
I just was clarifying that those are real people. Like I can pull up a picture of Andre the Giant and right,
Yeah.
but it's not the same as pulling up an illustration of Paul Bunyan.
But there can be like a transformation,
Bill.
right? Like nonfiction becomes fiction.
I don't know. What do you think?
Adopts
Like,
fictional qualities sometimes.
There's a like there's certain type of fidelity that is expected in historical storytelling, right? So then, so history should avoid legendary.
Oh, I agree, but
Right?
I think like in the popular imagination, right? Like if someone thinks of,
Yeah.
like what are the parts of a person who's past, deceased, forgotten, well, partly forgotten, but like I feel like parts of their personality remain in the imagination and maybe get inflated beyond.
George Washington.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Right. Like, oh, his teeth were his main thing.
When I think about the legend of George Washington, the cherry tree is what I think of. Yeah, before I think of his teeth.
His hippopotamus teeth or whatever they were.
Yeah, definitely. I
We
was
just
thinking,
grew up in different neighborhoods, I guess.
clearly, yeah, Don and I were over on Cherry Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of legendary and again, real person, but gets conflated to legend. The samurai Miyamoto Musashi. Are either of you familiar?
No.
Probably worth revisiting at a certain point, although many have talked about him, but just famous as many would give him the title as the greatest swordsman of all time because he defeated so many people in single-handed combat. Left behind a book called The Book of Five Rings, talking about how to engage in combat and learn to be a great warrior in that sense. And again, historical figure, but very much kind of legendary in the way that he's portrayed in art. And again, no photograph. This was a very long time ago, of course, before all of that. But I feel like he's passed into something that almost represents more of kind of a mythical, samurai type of a figure. Yeah.
And what will people get wrong about your legend, Don?
Yeah.
We've mentioned before that we're all educators, and there's actually, I think, a legend that kind of is attached already that I like to cultivate. And it's attached to that scary dad aura you're talking about, Doug, right? Like, I think that I'm kind of known as a scary educator, and I don't know why. Like, I've never been mean or anything, and so, but it's fine. Like, it's a good thing to cultivate.
Yeah.
So they can learn how nice I am later. Let's come in and be.
It's definitely better that way than the opposite. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're the nice guy, it's hard to be the scary guy.
Absolutely. I'm going to be scary now.
Don't make me go scary.
Absolutely. You want it? You got it. It's never good. Yeah.
Well, so we can circle around on this a little bit. Like, what legends do you think of? We mentioned Paul Bunyan.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know anything about Pico's Bill except that he is associated with Paul Bunyan. I think those stories are together. I think it's because they were cartoons together.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
What other? Who else do you think of when you think of legends?
Who was the guy that was building the railways? What's that guy's name?
So many guys. Where do you want to start?
There's one, right? And he was like the strongest dude. And he could drive a rail pile, in one swoop. And eventually he died, I think. And he worked himself to death, or the man worked himself to death, or worked him to death. Who am I thinking of?
John Henry.
Yes, John Henry. Exactly.
Yeah.
Think of legendary cowboys. That's a big one. Things like Jesse James,
Billy the Kid,
right?
Billy the Kid's a good one.
Yeah. And another example of real people, but then the legend continues on and continues to inflate. You brought up Andre the Giant. Of course, I'm going to throw Bret Hart in there, incredible professional wrestler that we all have a lot of respect for in this room.
We should probably also throw Rick Priestley, the guy who wrote the first edition of the Warhammer 40,000 rules. Just get all our hobby horse
John
heroes.
Blanche, great artist. Yeah, that's right. But I will say this. There's all of that to say, I think that I instantly go, it needs to be older though.
Yeah.
There's something inherent to
These are all American legends, right? And I think the American legend, I think looms large in the American psyche, but rubs a little too close to reality sometimes. If I can see a picture of Billy the Kid, he becomes less cool,
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
All right. And we have an international audience, so it's all right. Cast the net wider. What international legends?
Do we get into mythology as well?
Sure.
Because
is a myth a legend? There's got to be a difference there, right?
I don't know. I think myth.
I feel like I've wrestled with this before, and I don't know where I fall either.
Yeah, I mean, at least for my own personal, if you're asking me in the chair right now, where do you sit with
You're
this?
in the chair. You're locked in.
I'm actually on the couch, but that's fine.
No, but you're locked.
Okay.
Big light in your face.
I'm thinking that I'm sweating. Mythology, I immediately attribute to the structure of how the story's told. I think about that it's about it having some greater significance that's related to
almost
culture,
a parable, like
almost
quality,
a parable,
right?
Almost religious connotation in a sense.
So like Hercules,
Right?
Myth or legend or both?
I think both. Whereas legend, I think of the fact that it has a certain amount of universal appeal. I think.
What is a legend now? I'm just confused.
Yeah,
I think
what's a legend?
I think a legend. I think Hercules is a legend that exists in the context of mythology.
Okay.
So mythology, right? We've got explanatory myths, so they're based in the natural world and explaining why natural phenomenon are what they are, and they are a religion originally. And so it was a religious way to explain phenomenon that you did not know.
Right.
Where legends, and I think Hercules is a good example of one, right? It's a story that describes an extraordinary deed or an extraordinary event or an extraordinary person that is then involved in a series of those deeds and events.
Yeah.
So the mythology has more of the belief system attached, where the legend is just a story. However, I think what you said about the societal purpose of both of them is very closely linked. And I think it's actually something we're going to be talking about a little bit later today.
Ooh,
yeah.
Do you have a legend?
You guys are good at this. You dance so close to what I want to talk about. So,
or are you a great question asker? We don't know.
Would you say it's legendary?
It might be. We'll tell you at the end of this podcast. Keep listening, folks. This next sponsor is brought to you by Folgers Coffee.
The word legend, though, is immediately interest grabbing. If someone says like, "I got a legend," I'm like, "Oh yeah," I want to hear what's going on. There's something about if you made it into legend, right? It has to have been such an extraordinary or interesting or dynamite kind of persona or event, right?
Yeah,
there are some things you just got to know about.
And a myth is a sacred story that explains why the world is the way it is. A legend is a story that grows through whispers about what might have happened or how it might have happened, right? So it kind of has the ability to grow over time in a way that myth doesn't grow over time.
Right. A myth remains relatively static, right? Like we don't change what we think about the Odyssey. The Odyssey is just the Odyssey. You can present that with like some new set dressing,
right?
But you're not gonna like.
Yeah. Even in its structure, I want to hear book 17.
Yeah.
You want to hear exactly what's happening in book 17. Yeah. Makes sense.
He's got to hug his boy. He's got to
good guess.
Mess up the suitors.
Yep.
Which one's 7? Isn't that when he gets back? I don't know. How many books are in the Odyssey? Is at the end?
I was just finishing up the Iliad. I think there's 24, if I have it right. So yeah, I don't know. Odyssey. I'll have to go back.
What if we went to England? Legends you know about England?
Dreary, dismal, capitalist country.
That's not legend.
That's legend of capitalism.
Legends from the Isle.
Beowulf.
Beowulf's a good one?
Yeah. Oh, King Arthur, a big guy with.
When was King Arthur king?
Medieval times.
Before Henry VIII or after Henry VIII?
Before. Way before. He's an antiquity king, I'm going to say.
Antiquity?
I'm going to say before the Middle Ages. I'm going to say, oh no. I feel like, okay, before the Norman Conquest, there was a King Arthur.
Yeah?
Oh.
Well,
probably before the Anglo-Saxons, I'll say too.
And I wouldn't be so bold to even start.
That's my bet.
To enter this.
I'm putting money before Anglo-Saxons.
But you guys know about King Arthur, yeah?
Sure did.
All right, so tell me what you know.
Round table pizza.
Round table.
Round table. Boy, he had a wizard who could turn him into an owl and sometimes a squirrel.
How do you know those things?
Because The Sword in the Stone was my favorite movie as a young child. The Disney animated adaptation of these tales. Yeah. Yeah, Merlin the wizard is his advisor. He, at a very young age, pulls a sword out of a stone, and that means he is going to be the king. It's a sort of prophecy scenario.
Excalibur.
I really don't know actually what happens once he's king. I really only know the origin story. Guinevere shows up.
Oh yeah,
he has his knights. One of them betrays them and sleeps with Guinevere. Galahad, Lancelot.
he does.
You just name it. Galahad slept with Guinevere. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Really slaughtering
funny.
the tail,
One of them.
but that's
Galahad,
good.
the perfect knight.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, Sir Galahad.
That was. I thought that was it's an exploration of the hypocrisy of the knightly cast.
No, it has to be a guy whose name is Lancelot, which I've always found very funny. He's out there lancing
That
so
makes
much.
sense, yeah,
They
yeah.
call him Lancelot. My wife is actually obsessed with the television show Merlin, so she loves
We saw
all
some, yeah,
things.
that's pretty good with John Hurts the dragon.
I have not watched it all. I just know you boot that up for my wife, she's going to be entertained. Get the popcorn. And I know that the certain amount of betrayal and romance and chivalry that's involved is enough to keep her going. She really enjoyed it, to say the least. Many a quest is what I think of. The Holy Grail, of course.
But it's a tragedy too, right? Because his reign ends before his time. He's betrayed by his sister or one of the witches or something, or a godson.
I think it depends on the version, if I remember correctly. But yeah, are you thinking of Morgana?
Yes, yeah.
Morgana Le Fay? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What else we got here?
All right. Let's. You mentioned Sword in the Stone.
Yeah.
Which is a Disney movie.
Yep.
And Disneyland. You can also try to pull
That's
the
true.
sword.
You can try to pull the sword out of the stone in Disneyland.
Or stay at the casino in Las Vegas.
Sword in the Stone is actually based on a novel. Do you know which?
Is it Once and Future King?
It is by T.H. White.
So that's very late in the game, I'm assuming.
It is. That's
development.
That's 1958. So,
Okay.
So Arthur's been around for a little while. Sword in the Stone is just the first section of White's book. But White's book is super interesting. So big recommendation if you haven't read it yet. But the stuff with changing into animals is in there, and that's all. That's all
really?
the magical first part of the Once and Future King.
Would we say that's the most contemporary spin on the Arthur legend? I mean, I'm sure there's 1,000 young adult novels that are adding things, but that's the last big one, right?
I wouldn't say so. I think it's a super important one. I think I give a little bit of credence to The Mists of Avalon, which is a 1983 novel by Marion Zimmer Bradley. And the reason why I give that a little bit of credit here is she presents a feminist version of the story. So it's told from Morgan Le Fay's point of view.
Yeah.
And create some interesting tensions between Lancelot and Arthur that don't quite exist in other versions of it because of that focus on the feminist telling of it. She introduces Arthur as he was their king, but was also his mother's son, his sister's lover, their people's pawn in a game they barely understood. Right? So
what a great tagline.
Categorizes everything in context of the female characters in the story, which have gotten some short shrift for a good section of it.
I very much remember my first initial reading going through Le Morte d'Arthur and just thinking this is so much original sin. It's so much and then the woman ruined it again with a temptation and wily ways. So yeah, I could see that being a necessary addition. Yeah.
So credit to both of them. White's novel is really good at presenting these pithy little nuggets of wisdom. So a lot of it's in the first section because you're right, Ron, the story does lead to an eventual downfall. But Merlin used to say things like, Merlin said, the only way to achieve power is not to want it. That was a lesson he never forgot, even when they bowed and called him Majesty.
Yeah.
We need more of that in the world.
Yeah.
Sure do.
Yeah, for sure.
That's beautiful.
So then do we think the Arthur story is a sort of story about kingship and leadership and the sort of dream of a people for who should rule over them? Does Arthur exhibit all those qualities?
Doug, you were about to say.
Again, it's it's a reading of Lemort that's several. I mean, it's been almost a decade, but I would say I remember feeling very much that it was almost biblical in its portrayal of the eventual failure of humanity to do the right thing. Like when despair hits, and like there's a certain level of despair that people will selfishly choose to go in a certain way. And Arthur, because he is so pure, often is the one who's kind of sacrificed in the pursuit of that, and that he tries to continue to be noble, but his people want more, especially his knights. His knights will want more, and the round table falls apart because of it. I remember a climactic battle. I remember fatal wounding, and then we should remember him as the better that we should have been. And then the remembrance of him is kind of what they use to inspire that England takes so many of their values and virtue from the fact that they try to pursue the England that Arthur wanted. Mm-hmm. Did I do an okay job at that?
I think you did a good job.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was off the cuff from decade-old readings. So I think
I think that we need to circle back to this question over and over again, though, because kind of it reminds me of our Alien episode, right, where we have this cultural projection over time. So I think because there's been, we didn't talk about them, but there's been a minor resurgence in Arthurian movies recently. And I think there was like 3 or 4 of them between 2000 and 2012 or so, right?
Yeah. The last one I saw was the one where he was like a Roman. With Keira Knightley and the guy who's not Gerard Butler. What looks like the dude from Children of Men.
Oh,
who am I talking about? Clive Owen.
Yes,
for sure. There's First Night with Sean Connery. There was another King Arthur that was not a Roman one, but I remember that.
Yeah, Guy Ritchie's or something.
So again, we keep like this legend doesn't go away ever. It just kind of recirculates every so often. But I think the reason that we tell the story keeps changing over time. And I think we'll see that as we go further back, because we've got a little ways to go. We're only made it to 1958 so far.
Sure. Yeah.
Big story before that. The next one, going back, one would be Alfred Lord Tennyson.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Victorian poet, was poet laureate after Wordsworth in England. And his version of it it's called the Idylls of the King, or the Idylls of the King, I think is the more correct pronunciation, but it always slips out Idylls for me. And so it's told in verse, and it's the arc that you know, right? It's Sword in the Stone, and Arthur becomes king and falls in love with Guinevere, and the whole Mordred situation pops up. But then he has his best friend Lancelot, who starts sleeping with his wife, right? So everyone remembers the love triangles. Arthur is married to his queen Guinevere. A knight comes over from France named Lancelot. Lancelot and Arthur become best friends, but in that process, Lancelot also falls in love with Guinevere.
And something we haven't talked about that I do remember is there's also a prophetic speaking over the marriage, correct? And I don't know if this is all versions, but there's a prophetic speaking over the marriage. This is not going to end well for you if you marry this woman, because I think he's captivated so much by her beauty and kindness, correct? And he says, I must marry her. And it's like, no, this is not going to bode well if you decide to marry this woman, if I remember correctly.
There are versions where that happened. Let me see how far back that goes. He does. Yeah. So it's Merlin that warns him, and it goes back pretty far actually. So there's Mallory version.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is 1485. We'll get to.
Yeah. Sorry, skipping ahead there.
I know.
Or skipping back.
I know. We're going. Which way are we going, Doug?
You're going back in time. Thank you, Knott's Berry Farm, for many years of the dinosaur ride.
The thing that I find funny about reading Tennyson is he's writing as a Victorian about a love triangle where the best friend is sleeping with the wife of the other best friend, right? And so he has to be very Victorian about that. And so there's nothing explicit in the text. It's just like Lancelot and Guinevere like go off in the forest for a walk, and they come back, and she's got like twigs in her hair, and her dress is crumpled. But like nobody ever talks about what happened out there, right? We're just supposed to know. So he's very sort of restrained in that telling of the story.
What's Tennyson's interest in the material? Like,
I don't know.
Is it just a sort of like, is this like early Tennyson? Is this Tennyson at the height of his powers? Or is it just like, everyone's got to do a mythic cycle, their spin on it, and he's just sort of dusting off the cobwebs kind of thing?
Well, nobody had for quite a long time. So so he's picking up a story that has been ignored for several hundred years.
Yeah. Is it potential like nationalist sort of return to England's folk roots and things?
Well, and there's a moral thread that runs through Arthur, and the Victorians were that was a societal worry, was about the morality of the nation, especially with the Industrial Revolution. We've got a female queen rather than a male leader, right? So we're having to make all these adjustments, and there's this concern about whether or not, how do we keep the world right in that situation, and how do we keep the world just? So I think that's his interest, is in making sure that his Arthur embodies the ideal ruler.
Yeah.
So, and it's rather early in Victoria's reign. It's published in 1840 something, and she becomes queen in 1838, I think.
Okay.
8 or 9. So it's not quite instructive to the queen. I don't think he's that presumptuous, right? But as a message to society about how do you be the ideal ruler? How do you maintain morality in a society that is pushing you the other way? So it's typical Victorian instructionism disguised as a story. So, yeah.
Can I throw a curveball real quick?
Please.
And I would like us to immediately go, no, if you know nothing about it, but I'm just remembering this off the top of my head. Was there not a Mark Twain entry into
Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court?
That's what it is. Yeah. I have not read. I am not familiar.
Which starts the time travel version of the King Arthur story.
Okay. Okay. So there's that as well.
It's just not considered. It's not considered part of the Arthur canon for the Arthurian part of it, because Arthur's not the main character of the story. The Connecticut Yankee is the so it's an American story.
And he's going back to the
He's going which way?
Back in time. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can't show up at the Arthur convention and talk about Connecticut Yankee. They're going to be like, "Oh, this guy."
Yeah, probably. I mean, you can try.
I've never California been, so Yankee bringing his Connecticut Yankee.
What a deep cut, though! If it's like Comic-Con and everybody's cosplayed up, and you're there as a Connecticut Yankee, you're going to get a few people that are like, "Oh, very creative, very deep cut there, sir." Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll add that to my reading list then. That'll be interesting.
So that's Tennyson. But like I said, there's this big blank spot between Tennyson 1840 and the previous major Arthurian text. Want to guess how far?
200.
200 years to 1640?
201, Bob.
201. Playing the prices right. 1485.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes back a long way. And I think, again, it's part of what we were just talking about the legend being mapped onto society needs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
During the Renaissance, like, we didn't care about Arthur because we were going more cultural and scientific, and right. So we didn't need the story as much. It still existed. Queen Elizabeth traced her lineage back to King Arthur. Geoffrey of Monmouth, who we'll talk about in a little bit, was still read as history in the Renaissance.
That's cool.
By some people, it's starting to be questioned by others. But but do you know? You said you've read Mallory. Have you read Mallory?
I read some of it and never finished it.
Yeah.
Let's get you back in there.
Do you know anything about Mallory himself?
Not really. I just remember when originally reading it, it was considered by my professor as being one of the more comprehensive in terms of looking at different battles and cultural contexts within the French and English connotation of the text. That's what I was given at the time. I enjoyed it, though.
So Mallory was a knight in the Wars of the Roses, and he was put in prison by both sides.
Okay. It happened a lot in that war, right?
Yeah.
Can you give us a quick rundown?
Yeah.
My understanding of the War of the Roses is it's like a very internecine sort of battle amongst the aristocracy in England. Is that wrong?
Well, I mean, they were the ones trying to get the power, but most of the battle was happening between people less important than them. Oh. And it's actually called the Wars of the Roses, plural,
right?
Because it goes for like 40 years. Henry VI, who was crowned as a 9-month-old baby, against Edward IV. So, and they flip-flop twice. So it's Henry VI usurped, re-usurps back, and then for 1 year, and then Edward comes back and winds up killing him, or
So-
he dies mysteriously in jail. Maybe,
we all know.
Maybe murdered, maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah, we
And
know.
Jeffrey's imprisoned by both sides because he flips his opinion, his political,
Rape, murder,
just for actual crimes.
attempted murder, banditry, robbery, breaking out of jail. But he also was a Lancastrian, so he was on the side of Henry VI. So when he was imprisoned by Edward IV for that reason,
I see.
but both sides for different reasons imprisoned him at different points.
All of his crimes, the reason that knights needed a code of chivalry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which might be one of the reasons that he undertook a task. So he did write what today is kind of considered the canon of King Arthur literature. So when you're in prison, like, you got to do something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
why not,
time to write.
Yeah.
Time to write.
So what he did actually was take a lot of the earlier stories that we haven't talked about yet, because it's about to get messy. So like, this has been a pretty straight line we've been threading for the last half hour or so. It's going to get messy as we go further back in time.
Okay.
But what Mallory does, and why he's sort of this dividing line, is he takes those older stories, which are inconsistent and don't always have the same cast of characters, and assign the same actions to different people. And he kind of tries to clean that up. And he says, okay, this is the filter through which the story will now be told. So he has the major arc, which is the how Arthur becomes king, the individual knight stories, the quest for the Holy Grail, Lancelot, the love triangle, and then the decline of Arthur when Lancelot and Guinevere are caught in their affair.
Yeah.
So
That precipitates the decline.
it does, because Arthur is like, if it were just up to him, he wouldn't punish either of them. Personally, he loves both of them.
Yeah.
But the rule of law has to.
It's very progressive.
So
of
he
him.
has
Maybe we
to-
need Arthur back.
So he has to sentence Guinevere to death.
Oh,
But in doing so, he hopes that Lancelot is going to come kidnap her, right? So there's like this.
and he does.
He does, yeah. And,
I gotta read Arthur.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
So he does. Lancelot comes and kidnaps her, but then Mordred convinces Arthur that he has to go chase him. Like, you can't just let him go. Arthur, again, would have just like, it's kind of like an excuse I've heard recently, like, he's in a different country, I can't go get him in France. Right? I have no jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But Mordred convinces him to do so. And then when Arthur is out of the country besieging Lancelot to try to retrieve Guinevere, Mordred takes over, crowns himself king. So
As you
then
do.
Arthur's got to come back and fight his own son for and in the battle.
Yeah.
They wind up killing each other.
Yeah.
So,
That's it.
yeah. With, oh my gosh, with King Arthur's spear.
You mean his sword Excalibur?
No,
No, I don't, Ron.
I don't. King
I don't
Arthur
mean that.
takes his spear and stabs Mordred, and then Mordred runs down the spear in order to stab Arthur or in the head. And King Arthur's spear has a name. You'll never guess King Arthur's spear's name.
It's like Sun Foe or
Whoa.
Sun Slayer.
That if it were an Anglo-Saxon text, I think you'd be right, but no. Dog, do you know King Arthur's spear's name?
Spear of Destiny.
You know his
Probably
sword's
there's
name.
probably a tank named after it today. Is it Abram?
It's Rongomiant.
It was close.
But most people just call it Ron for short.
Hey. I always knew you were sharp as a spear, bud.
I feel like that's whenever I look up the meaning of my name, there's always like Feller of the King, King Killer shows up in some interpretations.
Now we know.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. So that's the general story, right? The general arc. And then underneath that, like I said, we have these single night adventures where Gawain will go out and search for a treasure and come back.
And all of them like had virtues attached to them. Like they were exceptional in certain respects.
and challenged morally in certain respects. And so a lot of the single night stories deal with that very issue, the knight being morally challenged and having to make a choice.
Yeah.
And then hopefully coming out better on the other side of it. Galahad being the only knight who never made a mistake.
Yeah. I was going to say they almost always blow it. which is part of the fun, I think, because it's like the compromise that they make makes them very human. Yeah.
And Mordred, I mentioned, is King Arthur's son. Do you know who the mother is?
I thought that he's like an incest son, right? Or like
An incest son.
with Morgana or something, right? I've seen this in the Sam Neill television series, Helena Bonham Carter.
So according to Mallory with Morgause, who is one of Arthur's half-sisters. So Arthur has a magical origin as well. So do you know where Arthur comes from?
Yeah. Pendragon. What's Uther?
Uther. Yeah. Uther Pendragon falls in love with Igraine, who's already married to Gorlo, and has Merlin disguise him like her husband.
That's right. I remember
magically,
this.
so that he could sleep with her.
Yeah.
And Arthur is the product of that rape. And so she already had 3 daughters. One's named Morgana, one is named Morgause, and one's named Anna. And in the story, they all kind of hate Arthur because he's the product of the rape of their mother.
Right.
Right. Their dad dies in a battle, and Uther does wind up marrying Igraine. But so for that reason, his sisters never really like him. And so, in Mallory, there's a ritual of fertility that Arthur somehow accidentally sleeps with his sister, and that's where Mordred comes from. So
This is taking me back to the film Excalibur immediately. I remember that from the beginning.
Yeah.
The disguising is so ridiculous. Yeah.
So then we got to go back a little bit further. So that's Mallory. And like I said, from here on out, it gets a little bit messy.
So Mallory was kind of the organizer, if you will.
He is. And so he had to filter out a lot of the things that were different about the earlier stories.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
The next one going backwards, I probably need to talk about is Geoffrey of Monmouth, which writes in about 1136 or so.
Okay.
He goes by his first name, so we can call him just Geoffrey, and everybody will know who we're talking about.
Thanks, Jeff. That's rare for that time period.
Sure is.
It is. Well, he just didn't write down his last name, so but he writes a book called the Historia Regum Britanniae in Latin, which is a history of the kings of Britain. That's what it means. So he's writing about all the kings of Britain, and guess who's stuck there right in the middle?
Papa Arthur.
That's him. Yeah.
So do we have, because I feel like part of the Arthur thing is like the debate. Was there an Arthur? Is there a historical Arthur? Blah, 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 right? In this, in Geoffrey's tale, is he cemented amongst real kings?
Yes.
He's the only fictional king, or one of several?
He is a king in the list of kings described by Geoffrey.
And that's it. There's no story.
There's no...
It's just,
there are stories, but you're asking if he's a fictional king, and this is a history book, and Arthur's in it.
Yeah.
oh, sure, yeah. But I mean, but he's the one we...
Don't poo-poo
Yeah, I was
me.
gonna say,
No,
how
but
could
what
you?
I mean is,
How
but
could
I
you?
use shorthand to express that we don't have a lot of other historical evidence corroborating his existence at this time.
That's what we're searching for. That's why we keep going
and
backwards.
I'm searching. I'm here. I got my binoculars,
Right.
but I just wanted to clarify that like there are kings in that book that we like. Yes, we have other codices or laws with their names on it and stuff
Yes,
like that. Okay.
there are real historical kings in Geoffrey's book.
Okay.
In this book, it's much more factual. He claims he's translating from an earlier Welsh text, and so he just kind of says things like, Arthur was a youth of 15 years old, beautiful and gallant, who gave eminent proofs of his bravery and generosity. So
Okay.
there you go. He's brave and generous.
It's got to be real.
That's what you get.
And young,
Yeah.
right? He was a youth. Mm-hmm. Okay.
He also is killed in battle. He was grievously wounded in battle and was carried to the Isle of Avalon to be healed of his wounds,
Yeah.
if such fortune would allow.
That's another question for me.
Yeah.
Is Avalon a real island, or is this an island out of myth? Like, can I go to like? Do we call that white now? Is white Avalon of yore or something?
No.
Okay.
Avalon's at Catalina.
Okay.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah.
No, it's a place like Camelot, right? Where it exists in the legend, but we don't have
Hard to
an actual
describe,
geographic.
yeah.
But there's things in history that are like that too, which we're going to come to. So there's
Sure.
it's maybe a real place, but it's not a place that we know today by that name. So we don't have
Right,
that way
right.
to associate it. So, the additions that that Geoffrey makes to the story is Arthur is finally a king. His travels go from England all the way to Rome because right. He does have Merlin, and there's some interesting things about Merlin in Geoffrey. Geoffrey doesn't invent Merlin, but in this history book we talk about this wizard providing aid to the king. He does pull it from a Welsh name. So there are earlier Welsh stories of King Arthur that have this character of Merlin, but in the Welsh, it's called Myrddin is his name. But in Welsh, Myrddin is spelled Myrddin. So
Myrddin.
The two D's make a TH sound in Welsh. But when Geoffrey's Latinizing that, right, he's got to change that name into a Latin version of that name. Mm-hmm. So everyone expects him to keep the R and the D, so to be Myrddin, right, or Myrddinus. But there's actually some medievalists who have proposed that he changes it from Myrddinus to Merlinus, changes the R to the L because merd is merdas in Latin. You know that one?
Poop.
Merd in French? It's feces.
Yeah.
So he changes the name of Merlin so he doesn't sound like a pile of poop.
Yeah. I know. I mean, he was a good guy.
Yeah.
It is how it works, right? Just one guy's like, no, that won't work.
So, and he doesn't invent the round table. There's no mention of a table, but Arthur does recruit knights from across Europe. So he is sort of starting that fellowship in Geoffrey. The table is invented by a different group that we'll talk about. So that's Geoffrey. History book just talks about him as a real person, and that's the book that Queen Elizabeth uses to trace her genealogy back to King Arthur.
That's cool.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Then we have some other smaller writers that we need to talk about. We've got Marie de France, we've got Cretin de Troyes, Robert Baron, that all write these much smaller tales based on the same set of characters. They are all French, writing about this English king. So they start writing more this romantic story. This is where we get single night adventures from. Cretin de Troyes brings in Lancelot with the knight in the cart. And then we get these stories told and retold by a group of monks. So it's anonymous set of books called the Vulgate Cycle. It's 5 books written by a group of monks in France, and covers the origin of Merlin, the origin of Arthur, the Sword and the Stone. A lot of the elements now that we would recognize as the Arthur story, we're pulling here from the Vulgate Cycle. And what's interesting about this cycle is it's 5 books. It's over 1 million words. It's bigger than the Bible.
Wow.
So these monks are that into this King Arthur story. They're the ones that make Mordred an incest baby. So prior to the Vulgate Cycle, Mordred,
there is a Mordred, but
it was a nephew of the king.
And so we think they're not, they very well could be compiling different versions of the stories they've heard, but is the prevailing theory that they're also inventing a little, like they're having a little fun.
They are. They're changing some details, but we know for sure that they pulled from like Robert Baron and Cretin de Troyes, and so they're pulling in elements from these other authors for sure. But they're sort of like the early medieval bulk, right? They're that tell the story. But where did Geoffrey get the information from?
Geoffrey.
Let me go back a little bit further.
Is this where we come into is this the misty, folky?
It is. We're getting back in the fogs of time. So Geoffrey's 1136. I want to go back to about 600.
Oh,
okay. So we're going to go back 500 years in time, and I want to tell you a story about a kingdom called Gododin. Gododin. Yeah.
Whoa. In stereo. Let's pan those left and right for our listeners.
So Gododin was a kingdom that inhabited northern England, like above York, maybe the lower part of Scotland. And around the year 600, the Roman legions used to be up here north, right, protecting Hadrian's Wall. They've been gone for about 200 years. Okay. So Rome fell in the 5th century, and There's a king who brings all of his greatest warriors together in order to fight against the invasion of the Saxons that is happening. And his name is, here we go. His name is Manathag Menwar.
Menwar.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
And so they meet in what we think is Edinburgh today, and they feast for an entire year to get ready for this battle.
Great place to do it.
That's a
Beautiful.
legendary feast.
Yeah.
And he marches 300 men south to confront the Saxons.
Only 300. That's all he could find in a year.
And they all die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the original 300. The 300 of men.
It is. It just was a shorter movie.
Yeah, very much so. The feasting was the majority of the film.
Party too much, bro.
There were a handful that escaped to tell the story, otherwise we wouldn't know about it. One of them is a poet named Anarn, and he writes this poem called Ugadoden, which is a series of about 97 elegies about all these great warriors who died in that battle. I want to tell you about two of them.
Okay.
First one is a guy named Owain.
Owain.
And just for context, because it might matter knowing that what you both know in your backgrounds, his name is spelled Owain,
Right.
but pronounced Owain.
Okay.
And he's a real person, and he dies in this battle, and we know that he was real because he is the son of his name is Owain Maborian. He's the son of a king, the king of Harged, and another poet named Taliesin writes about him.
Okay.
And then we find him in this second poem where he died called Ugadoden. So we know he was a real human being, right? Because he's existing in two different contemporary sources, both talking about how great he is, and the other talking about how great he was right before he died.
Yeah.
He gets wrapped into these stories we've been talking about. So Owain becomes Ewain in the Knights of the Round Table. So Ewain, Ywain, who is also a nephew of Arthur, who's the son of Morgan and King Lot sometimes. So parentage changes a little bit, but is known for making friends with a lion. So he's got his pet lion friend that follows him around everywhere. And
Lion of England. Is that where it comes from?
And it's not, but but I think that's interesting because you brought it up earlier, right? So can a human being, a real human, become a legend, right? And here is a case where one of the characters in this legend, I can tell you who he was. Like I can tell you exactly which character or which human being it traces back to. So
he's like, that is an interesting thing because now he and his memory have been transmuted into something that maybe bore very little resemblance to the real him right, at some point.
This ain't 12 toes. This is 300 toes.
I doubt he's complaining, right? Because he's, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like you became Spider-Man's best friend.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, I'll take that.
Plus, he literally can't complain. Let's not forget that.
Because he doesn't speak English.
That too.
So the second character I want to tell you about is a guy named Gwarther. He appears in stanza 99 if you're going to go look it up.
I'm going now.
Yeah. He apparently was a really good warrior as well. His stanza, let me just read you the stanza. He pierced over 300 of the finest. He slew both the center and the flanks. He was worthy in the front of the most generous army. He gave out gifts of herd of steeds in the winter. He fed black ravens on the wall of the fortress.
Yeah. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Do you guys understand what the feeding black ravens is? Is he like
kill
old man on the
corpses,
bench?
enemy, right?
Yeah, it means he's feeding them by murdering them. But here's the last line of the stanza. Although he was no Arthur.
Oh. Yeah.
Throwing a little shade on Gwarther, huh?
Yeah.
So that's what it sounds like to me too. Medievalists say no, that it's a common way to compare, and actually it's a compliment,
Right.
Because the stick you're using to measure Gwarther is
Arthur.
It's still Arthur.
Is Arthur, yeah. So
Because no one could be better than Arthur, but he was close, is what they're saying.
that's right. He's right up there. Like we can't have Arthur, at least we can have Gwarther.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because they're so close in name. Yeah. Wow.
So, and what year
a
is
stanza.
this? This is 600?
600. Yeah, it's about 600. We don't have a.
So then Gwarther isn't Arthur. It would be easy. You'd want to say, "Oh,
the names are
Gwarther
so
was
similar,
Arthur.
right? Like it makes sense,
But
right?
he's not.
Because they're mentioned in the same stanza, so they can't be.
So Arthur has to predate even Gwarther.
He does, yeah.
So he has to predate. So he does predate the Anglo-Saxons, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, which means I think Doug owes me a cheeseburger.
See a porco.
Yeah. But so then we are going into Clive Owen Roman territory with Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting closer. And Arthur, just to clarify, Arthur's not mentioned anywhere else in this whole poem. So in Algid Odin, that's the only mention of Arthur. So it's not like Arthur. And
Gwarther, he's not like the leader of the army, right? He's just a guy.
No, that's
another petty lord.
Marwar. But here's what's interesting about that mention is the poet is so convinced that whoever is listening to this knows who Arthur is. Yeah. You don't have to explain.
Yeah.
Right? It's just enough to say his name and everybody go, oh, yeah.
Everybody knows.
Yeah.
So he was big. It wasn't like we know Arthur because of a couple of movies and a couple of weird Victorian poets who brought him back. Even back then, they were big Arthur stans.
So it has to be somebody who is famous enough that just that reference would be enough.
Yeah, this is now getting back to our original conversation about legend, right? Because if it's enough to be mentioned in one line for popular, I would assume popular consumption of the text, although I'm guessing not many read at this time, but enough like whoever's reading that they would know that. It's a big deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another interesting thing around the same time, around 600. So if we look at genealogies that exist before this, we don't have the name Arthur anywhere. But right around 600, all of a sudden this name Arthur starts showing up in royal genealogies and in other records, right? So we've got Arthur Mac Aiden, the son of the 6th century Scottish king Dalrialta, who died fighting the Picts in 596. There's other Arthurs appearing all over royal genealogies and inscriptions in Celtic British. So again, there was somebody who carried that name that was famous enough right around that time for everybody to start saying, hey, this must be our guy.
And do scholars think like, perhaps it's one of these Arthurs? I'm assuming there's been sort of a Jack the Ripper-esque pouring over of all of these mid-Arthurs to see if any of them even measures up in some small way or dated a woman with a G name. Or
there is a few. So you mentioned earlier that you saw that movie that proposes the Roman legion theory, right?
Yeah.
The name of the person that's attached to is a guy named Lucius Artorius Castus, who was a Roman cavalry leader. And he lived around the 2nd century, so firmly in the middle of Roman Britain. So the Roman Empire had expanded, right, and included England at this time. He actually has a story that goes backwards too, so this will be fun.
Okay.
He was a Sarmatian, which comes from like the area of Ukraine.
Okay.
Right, and was defeated and his cavalry by the Romans, and then they were absorbed into the Roman legion. So he was a leader in what's called the 6th Victus Legion, and they were assigned to this area of northern England to protect Hadrian's Wall, keep out the Scots and the Picts. And the Sarmatians, what I think is interesting, they have a cult of the sword. So they would sometimes worship their swords as like the god of war. And so the altars that are associated with that are these swords that are stuck in either a rock or dirt.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That lines up pretty well.
Yeah, it does. Unfortunately, with that thread kind of dies out right about there. Okay. So is that guy? That's the guy that has the closest name to Arthur. That's a Roman, but he would be in the 2nd century, so in the 100s, and then we've got nothing that mentions his name until 600. So most of the scholars don't think this is our guy mentioned in the 600 poem, because there's too much time in between. He could be the source of the name,
right?
But we don't think he's the guy. Yeah. So who else could it be? There's another Welsh writer named Nennius, who is another monk, and he's writing a book called of history, right? Trying to establish sort of this national identity for the Britons, right? And the Britons being the natives of the island. So
Briton.
That's the one. Yes, exactly. And he writes in the 800s, and he writes a book called Historiam Britannicum, and it's really not a lot there. But he does list 12 battles, and many of the battles we can't identify with a battle. So, like, we don't know what battle he's talking about. But the last one is named the Battle of Baden Hill. And that one we can corroborate in another source. But in the Battle of Baden Hill, Arthur is described as a war leader. So he leads the Britons to victories against the Saxons. And he's never directly described as king or crowned as king, but he's described in these superhuman terms, one of which would be like these 12 battles probably lasted over 100 years. It's a strange way, but the corroboration that we have of this, so that name Arthur is the only time that Arthur is associated with Baden Hill. But I know that the Battle of Baden Hill happened because there's another writer named Gildas, who also writes about this, and he claims that the Battle of Baden Hill happened 44 years and 2 months after the Saxons arrived, which was also the time of his birth. He doesn't mention Arthur. He doesn't mention who led the Battle of Baden Hill, but we know that the battle happened then. It would have been the early 500s.
Yeah.
But he does add a couple other interesting details. He says that the leader of the Britons at the time was a guy named Ambrosius Aurelianus, which sounds Roman, but it's because he's Roman descendant. So from the Romans who had left several hundred years earlier. So Bede then picks up in the 600s from Gildas in the 500s about this guy Ambrosius. So there's a possibility that Ambrosius becomes Arthur in Nennius. So maybe Ambrosius is this Arthur that then turns into the Arthur of, but that's way back in those foggy mists of time we can't quite see. So, but what I think is interesting is that we have this whole canon of literature of stories of the king and the justice and the decline and the magic, and it's all based on probably maybe a guy who was probably a pretty good, fighter.
Yeah.
But like all of those facts don't matter. The story
is what matters.
Gets told, and the story is true, even though none of it happened.
Right.
And it's weird because like him even probably being some, warrior guy also doesn't really seem to matter to people. I mean, different time, different mindset, different priorities, I guess, different values. But it's like, oh yeah, he was one of hundreds of very good fighting men. Why him? What was so unique? I mean, that's the part that's fun to speculate about, I think, because it's like...
Well, and then as the story gets added onto, right, and each generation like adds its little twist on it. So in Ugadothan, those earlier versions, right, we needed a warlord who could help us defeat the Saxons. But then when we're Saxon, then all of a sudden we need a king who can lead us to victory. And then all of a sudden the French are taking over, and Arthur basically gets sidelined in most of the French stories. And everybody's, just worried about their feelings or whatever. And then we take the story back in Mallory and we need this man who can lead us to justice. But then even in that, he's frail too, and he falls too. And there's no perfection, even though we want perfection. Yeah. So the flexibility of the story to match the needs of society is interesting.
It very much reminds me of like essentially what we see with comics, in the sense that like a hero continues to shift with every single changing of the tide. And you can see that there's like so many retellings. The
Batman of today is different than the Batman of 1960 or whatever.
And how many different variations and versions. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, maybe that's going back to what is legend, right? I think that that's a huge part of it, because I think that Arthur definitely, well, and again, I'm very much thinking about the Mallory, but it does have the mythological aspects of almost religious connotation and sacrifice and morality and virtue that you serve and what's right and wrong. But I think the legend part of it is the fact that the character adapts, that you can kind of see yourself in it, or it like reflects your time in a way that's so on the tip of your tongue that you would understand it immediately. And maybe that's a big part of the legend.
And we didn't talk about it, but that's absolutely one of the projects of the Vulgate writers, right? That write that really long French version, is they're taking those pagan stories and they're Christianizing the king.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
I've got a question. Do you want there to be a historical Arthur?
I don't know if it matters.
Does it make the legend cooler or less cool if there was a real guy who was just some Scottish guy named Artuhus or whatever?
I think it makes it less cool immediately, because it's going to bring in the historian concept of like, but what actually happened was, and I want the tall
And that would like deflate the legend. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
see, I like that there probably was a person, even though none of the stories associated with that legend probably really happened, but that there's some kernel, like, I don't know what the kernel of truth is. Like, he must have been a badass soldier. Like, that's got to be it. But not knowing, but it creates that intrigue for me, like Jack the Ripper. And I know that there's lots of problems that people have brought up with, searching for the murderer and why we're glorifying the criminal instead of the victims and all, with Jack the Ripper. But I like that it's an inaccessible piece of information that I know exists in the universe. The same thing here. Like Arthur, I like that he probably was a real person, and I don't care that real person doesn't have anything to do with the stories, because the stories still are true.
Right.
Yes.
Even though they're not factual.
It's the sort of twist of fate that the stories even survive today and have become what they are. That's kind of the attractive thing there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The legends build the things that we need them to be through story, and whether or not it was a real person. But I like the fact that a real person started that, was the first domino.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think if I knew who it was, I might be less impressed. I think it's only because it's a mystery. Like, it's a known, I know that there was a person, but I don't know who he was or what he did. That. I like that enigma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then it becomes almost silly, right? It becomes sort of foppish. Like, he wasn't everything he was cracked up to be, I feel like it's a thing kids would tell you. It's like wrestling when they tell you it's fake. Oh, he's not actually, doing that. And you're like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. Thanks for bringing it back, Ron. Really appreciate it.
Trying to speak Doug's language a little
Thank you. It meant a lot. Yeah.
And it all grew from Gwarther not being an Arthur.
Yeah.
Poor Gwarther.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have been him. He could have been.
Could have been.
We could have been talking about King Gwarther.
He wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't.
Turns out not everybody was satisfied with Ron's presence. I didn't have 12 toes, but we hope that the legend grows. Yeah.
And Don wasn't a spooky teacher. Thank you very much for bringing this to us today, Don. And hopefully this has contributed in some way to our legend.
That's right. Of course. Because what survives isn't the fact. It's the feeling. All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.